Good evening and welcome to the AARP Civic Debate Series, a joint production of Colorado Public Television and AARP. I'm your host, Dominic Dezzutti. Tonight we kick off our series of debates looking at the major races for the Denver City Council. We begin our coverage with a debate featuring the candidates from Denver's District 1. Joining us for the next 60 minutes are Victoria Aguilar, Sabrina D'Agosta, Scott Durrah, Praj Kulkarni, David Sabados, Mike Somma, and Amanda Sandoval. Everyone, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to get started. So, let's lay down as the ground rules here. We're going to ask each of you a question. Let's take 1 minute to answer, and we'll go through that way. Victoria, I'm going to start with you with a question about affordable public transportation. An affordable public transportation system is vital to a livable city and to the many Denver residents who depend on it. What policies would you pursue in the City Council to promote a more affordable and accessible transportation system for all city residents?
Well, thank you for the question. As somebody who has worked at Human Services for the past 10 years, I realize the struggles that our community members, particularly the most vulnerable, have when accessing public transportation. And when we look at public transportation as a means to getting folks to jobs, getting elderly patients perhaps to their appointments, I think that public transportation needs to be built on a system of public transportation for people, not for profit. And so I think that Denver has not done a particularly good job about that. There are different policies that I believe as long as we're making policies that are based off of people, that we can have a successful transportation system.
Sabrina, same question to you. An affordable and accessible transportation system in the city of Denver.
Sure, I think we need to start by not reinventing the wheel and look at some of the recommendations that have already been made by organizations like the Denver Streets Partnership. I also think that it's really important that we look at how we could increase additional routes, particularly in Northwest Denver. We're missing a lot of sort of routes within the district and getting folks to and from. And I think that trying to look at the affordability issues and accessibility issues for our residents is key. For me, the biggest way to do that is through relationships and developing those relationships with the RTD elected officials and their board, and making sure that we can work on intergovernmental agreements and things that help improve the systems for our residents hand in hand with them.
Scott, let's go to you. A question about transportation in Denver.
I think it's very important that we reach out and ask our communities what they need. You know, here we are talk about what we think everyone needs, but we need to dig down and ask what our community needs. I think we need more stops within our district. We need to connect the main streets more to the small businesses that really empower our communities. And I think that's a key thing. But we need to step out of the box. We always hear that, there's solutions in place. There are not solutions in place. You know, we always try to work off of systems and things that the city council has passed, and it's not working. You know, we have a city where development has gotten out of control, so we have not been able to keep our options for transportation up with the growth of the city. So we need to go back to the drawing board and ask our residents and our community leaders, what do you need? And then build a system around that versus putting a system in place and then forcing other people to accept it.
Praj, affordable and accessible transportation in the city of Denver. Your thoughts?
Yeah, great. So I think since affordability is a key metric, it's important to use what already exists rather than trying to build something fresh and grand just because it sounds good. We have bus lines, we have some light rail lines. We should expand upon that, expand our bus routes, expand the number of stops. Also, we can do things like Victoria mentioned that Human Services also does, which I'm familiar with, is partner with small-scale shuttle services, small-scale drivers. There are funds that are already allocated in certain departments for that, and we can expand the use of such programs. And that will keep the cost down, because ultimately, a program is only feasible and worthwhile if it can be implemented, and it can only be implemented if you keep the cost down.
David, we're talking about affordable and accessible transportation in the city of Denver. Your thoughts?
Thank you. No, I'm glad you asked that. It's one of the three big things I talk about when I'm out knocking doors quite a bit. The biggest thing we can be doing is augmenting what RTD currently offers, and that's going to take a buy-up program, not unlike what Boulder did a number of years back that created their hop, skip, and jump lines. And that's a city investment to make sure that we increase frequency and we increase lines, and ultimately we can increase ridership, which increases the revenue back into the system. in addition to what we can do with buses, we need to address the last mile concerns. And that's making sure that Denver has a full and complete safe sidewalk system, that we have safe bike routes and protected bike lanes, and otherwise make sure that folks can get from the last bus stop to where they're trying to go.
Mike, accessible transportation in the city of Denver, what would you do?
Dominic, my proposal is to go back to streetcars, electric streetcars that run off of batteries. They are feasible. They will be pet friendly, bicycle friendly, $1 fee. They'll take you from the spots that RTD does not get you from to fill in that gap. I would work jointly with RTD and the light rail system that is now going to run in North Denver, and also the business owners. Because I think what happens if you could bring people back down to the business areas by just jumping on a streetcar or trolley and getting them down to those areas, that would lower maybe the rent in areas that are kind of abandoned on their business. Maybe we could bring that back up and thrive to bring those businesses back up into economy.
Amanda, wrap it up for us, talking about accessible and affordable transportation in Denver.
Yeah, so accessible transportation is essential to the health of every neighborhood, including Northwest Denver. I would like to get work with RTD to get a family pass, so that if you're a family, you can all people in the family could use the family pass. I'd also like to look at circulators so that we could get from this stadium over to grocery stores, so that we could get down Spear Boulevard to the Pepsi Center. And I'd also like to look at the first and last mile in DU. There's a system called Chariot, and so we could pilot that in Northwest Denver, and Chariot helps you get from where your last transit stop is to where you're going. And then also we need to make sure that we're talking about seniors who have health issues and mobility issues, making sure that the Access-a-Ride is there and making sure it's always free for them.
David, you're going to start us out in this next question. Denver is currently experiencing a shortage of affordable housing. If elected, what would you do to protect and increase the supply of affordable housing, specifically in light of the prospect of increased gentrification of some neighborhoods and along newly opened light rail lines?
Great, thank you. Affordable housing is definitely the #1 topic I know across the city this year. There's a number of things we can do. The Denverite Plan discusses expanding out the use of accessory dwelling units, carriage houses, and those sorts of options that create a second small home. Those can create affordable rentals for many folks who are moving here and provide a revenue stream for longtime homeowners, ensuring that they can be keeping up with rising property taxes and actually bringing more funds in themselves. Options like that also make sure that we are protecting the character of our neighborhoods instead of always having to demolish homes. Beyond just increasing supply, there's more that we can be doing to be lowering the overall cost for builders who want to be building affordable housing. And that's the city helping facilitate low interest loans for builders who want to create housing at a lower AMI, area medium income, and also making sure that the permitting process is streamlined for those individuals as well.
Dave, thank you. Mike, same question to you. We're talking affordable housing.
Affordable housing. What we have now is we have high dollar renters or rentals in the city that people can't afford. So what we need to do is put the brakes on, and then we need to streamline our city zoning ordinance to make sure when we do build these that the zoning or the ordinances when they do build go a lot faster than they have been, and quit delaying some of these builds. And we have builders that want to come to the city and county of Denver, and what I've seen over previous years is they put roadblocks in their way, and the builders get frustrated and move their projects to other cities or suburbs. So we need to look at our zoning and our building department and make it easier for builders, and then also look at our seniors to make sure that we're building for people that want to downsize and have affordable living for them.
Amanda, how do we protect and increase the supply of affordable housing?
So we need to protect and increase by partnering with Denver Housing Authority, which we've done several times. We have a project on Colfax and Perry that's 120 units going in for seniors. We also need to make sure that the current linkage fee that we have in Denver, you can pay it out, And I would like to see that policy change so that we're including a requirement for on-site development of affordable housing. So in Northwest Denver, the only transit stop that we have is the 41st and Fox Station area plan, where density is planned. And so when we have that impact and higher density, we need to make sure that developers are not paying into the linkage fee, that they are actually including requirements for on-site housing.
Victoria, it's a common topic, but important to all citizens. How do you address affordable housing in Denver?
Most definitely. I think I would like to start by saying that I firmly believe that housing is a human right. It doesn't matter your age, gender, ethnicity, that housing and safe housing and stable housing is definitely a right that all of our residents in Denver should have. I believe that we have to revisit some things in Denver. Building more housing stock is not necessarily going to fix our housing crisis that we're in. We have to revisit linkage fees. We have to start being creative and looking at things like community land trusts to ensure that the land stays in the hands of the community and it remains affordable for many generations to come. I also believe that we need to look at city-funded programs, which are rental assistance, eviction assistance, helping folks who are longtime residents stay in their homes and make it continue to be affordable. I've spoken to many people who you wouldn't believe that, you know, a simple repair of their roof makes a big difference in their lives. And I think that when we as a city and city leadership understand that we need to invest into people and housing, we'll solve this problem.
Sabrina, how do we protect affordable housing?
I think addressing our affordable housing crisis is a twofold solution. One is that we need to address the affordable housing supply, and the second is that we need to increase and protect our living wages in the city. Right now, we have roughly 60,000 residents living in Denver who make less than roughly $30,000 a year, and there is no affordable housing supply whatsoever for those folks. And yet we have 20,000 luxury apartments that are sitting vacant today. And so to me, this is about not just building more, but matching our housing stock to the incomes of the people who live here, ensuring that people who are working in our community can also live in our community, helping young people put down roots, people who are retiring stay in their homes. I think there's much more we can do for repurposing existing units and building accessory dwelling units. And I think there's more we can do for protecting our renters. And also, we're going to have to, again, increase wages to do that. So I am very much in favor of increasing the minimum wage in Denver in order to get us there.
Scott, we're talking about protecting and increasing the supply of affordable housing.
Yes, and you'll hear it from me 1,000 times, but I addressed it in my 4-year plan as well. And the thing we really need to talk about is we're right. We need to create more options, housing options for people. And really, you know, coming down to a lot of what we said here, we have people who can rent in Denver. They should be able to own in this Denver. We have people who own homes in this Denver. They should be able to partner with responsible developers. We need to look at all options. We need to step out of the box once again. And I think that can be happening with private funding. Maybe city bonds to look at how do we entice developers to come here to be more responsible. But I think the units that we build, the percentage of these units needs to address what the needs are here. We should have those units being set aside for seniors. We should have them being set aside for our teachers, our city workers, those people who live and actually make the city great. And we need to do that with responsible developers. We have a city that is growing, a city that is blowing up, and there's plenty of apartments, but the partnerships are incorrect. It's creating those new partnerships and having the leadership to be able to be that person to create those new partnerships with responsible developers. And then I think it's an easy solution. But we need to think outside the box and change what we're doing now.
Praj, wrap it up for us. We're talking about affordable housing.
Yep, I think this is an issue many of us share a lot in common. To echo what many other people said, we need to increase supply in the types of available units, so accessory dwelling units or carriage houses. We also need to do things like streamlining permitting and lowering interest rates and encouraging these sorts of development. But to be a little more specific, affordable housing won't happen by accident. It has to be designed. A developer has to come in and say, I want to make this unit affordable. You can do that by most easily by driving down costs, and that will happen if you don't have to build from scratch. If you can repurpose what already exists. This has happened in other cities, so you can repurpose big box retail, old motels, and that will allow us to build the more efficiency, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, small apartments that don't necessarily have to have all the luxury features of the apartments that Sabrina mentioned. So let us increase the supply and diversity of types of housing and repurpose existing structures.
Let's get to our next question. Scott, you're going to be starting on this one. What do you believe is the greatest barrier to older adults being able to age with dignity in their community?
You know, I hired my grandmother when she was 75 years old to work for me, and I think a lot of that has to do with actually partnering our seniors, not using that word seniors, let's just say, you know, the next step in people's lives with small businesses. We're a city that really has the heart and souls of small businesses. And I think, you know, owning small business myself, we've given a lot of opportunities. I've created over 150 jobs in my district and 175 jobs in this city since I've been here. And I think a lot of it is just really connecting those seniors with the right businesses. And we have a large group of small business. But another thing we can do is when we're bringing in businesses to this city, once again, we make it a requirement to some of these organizations that were coming in here that they have to have a percentage of those jobs set aside for our seniors. And understand that seniors don't need to be just sitting behind a counter, but we need to utilize their strengths and where they are at that point, not to set them back 10 years, but to utilize their mentoringships. And I think as well we can do is tie them into our school systems where we have our seniors actually mentoring the youth of today and maybe creating some type of partnerships and entrepreneurial opportunities as well.
Praj, aging with dignity in Denver.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we lose out on is a sense of community. So and it's not just senior citizens who will have a problem with this. I think we all lose out if we don't have truly diverse communities, where you can have grandmothers and grandparents who live next to people who are my kids' age, who are 3 and 1 year old. So what we need, a big part of that is what we've spoken about before, housing. Diverse housing options, affordable housing options allow diverse types of people, from the educated IT worker to the senior citizen to the working class plumber or electrician, to all live in the same community. And along with that, the city can do more to provide a sense of community, like doing things like block parties, more community events, more neighborhood gathering spots, so everyone feels like they can knock on their neighbors' doors and invite them over for lunch or coffee or dinner one day.
David, aging with dignity in Denver, not always easy. What do you think?
Sure. No, and there's a number of things. First, I'm sometimes accused of being a bit of a policy wonk when I'm answering some of these questions, but truly the collision of Tabor and Gallagher is one of the biggest problems in terms of our tax structure and property taxes, and it has really made it challenging for a lot of people to be staying where they're at. Beyond that, there's a number of things I think that have already been brought up of how we can ensure that if folks want to stay in their home, if they are, like I said, renting out an ADU, or the ability to stay on their own property in another location and renting out their main house is also a great option. A number of years back, probably about 6 years back maybe now, we also legalized if you're growing produce, you can be selling it on your front porch. It was a city council action. And some of these that if people want that kind of hobby income in retirement is also a great opportunity for folks to both stay engaged in their communities and be bringing in additional funds. And finally, as stated before, raising the minimum wage. We know increasingly that a lot of fast food and other retail workers are not, it's not teenagers, it's not the kid trying to buy their first car, it's folks of all ages, and recognizing that everyone needs a living wage.
Mike, keys to aging with dignity in Denver. Your thoughts?
Take the fear out of that senior. People have lived in their house forever. When they go to sell it, their fear of, yes, they make a high dollar on it, or where are they to go after they sell their home? Get them in the community. They've been in the community forever. Education. Let's bring them in our school systems and intermingle with the students to give them the knowledge that they've learned, and let the students now teach them how to work in the modern world as far as computers and things go like that. Give them a break, as we call it. I'm a Denver firefighter, so as we call it seniority. When these restaurants open up, have that senior come and give them first advantage of living, and they're not going to die. I fit that era of a senior citizen. And just because you're over that magic age of 60 doesn't mean that your life ends. It means that a new chapter begins. So allow them the dignity, the continue, and community. It's been brought up here. Have them involved in the community and bring their knowledge.
Amanda, the keys to aging with dignity in Denver.
Yeah, so one of the issues I think of aging is isolation. a lot of times what you'll hear from seniors is that they feel very isolated. And another key issue is that we don't have the architecture to make sure that they're on one-story ranch. So when you buy a multi-story house, going up and down the stairs as you get older is not always easy. So when we're building out these new houses and we're building out the affordability issues, we're making sure that we have architects who are qualified to make sure that we're looking to generate 2 decades down the road to make sure that the housing stock is built so that they can age in place, so that you do have a ranch, so that you have your washer and dryer on the same place. Also, another thing is seniors have a lot of expertise. So making sure that we incorporate them into the city council office, make sure that you have the Highland Senior Rec Center in Northwest Denver on 29th and Osceola is a great gathering place for a lot of seniors. I've met them there. Making sure that we have senior resource day there. And then also respecting our elders and welcoming them into our home. It seems that we've gotten away from a time where it's single occupancy in houses, single occupancy in cars, but let's go back to that having multi-generations. I'm a Latina, proud Latina, and that's what we do in our family is we bring in our elders into our family and we help take care of them so that they can age dignified.
Victoria, aging with dignity in Denver, your thoughts?
My thoughts, definitely, I've experienced this firsthand in the lobby of our human service offices, and I know that some of the issues and barriers that our seniors are facing when they call in are definitely social isolation, homebound, and a big one is refusal of services because we're not tailoring our services to the needs of elders in our community. I have developed several programs at Denver Human Services that are community-led programs, that are culturally responsive programs. I think partnering with like Colorado Latino Age Wave with the Rose Community Center and finding different ways to connect and bring our elders back into our social scenes in our communities is going to help have people age in a dignified way and really connect them with trusted community members. There's a promotora program that's in Montbello currently. Denver was the inaugural city for this type of program, and I think we need to continue to look at these programs that are community-led, that are with already trusted community members to help engage seniors back into our society.
Sabrina, finish up for us, aging with dignity in Denver.
I think aging with dignity is about being valued, feeling safe and healthy, included and appreciated for your life experiences. To me, affordability, which we discussed before, is just key to be able to age in your home and your community and stay where you've been for most of your life. I think transportation and healthcare are critical for our aging populations, and work and volunteer opportunities that keep people connected in meaningful ways in the community. We have senior resource days that we could expand into our communities, rec center programs that have been mentioned, and I think again it just comes back to our quality of life being very connected to our connections with other people.
Okay. Amanda, you're going to start us on this next question. Homelessness is a huge issue in Denver, continues to be, and if elected, any of you are likely to see in the next 4 years at least an economic downturn, if not a recession. What specific policies are missing today from the Denver law books to address homelessness?
Yeah, so there's several missing policies. When I was working for Councilwoman Judy Montero, we opened the outdoor courtyard next to the rescue mission downtown so that homeless could go in and take a shower and have services, use the bathroom. But with that, we're not talking about mental health. So we're talking